to find order in chaos and meaning in chance, hold purpose within randomness, and glimpse destiny through coincidence. It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, that in a universe governed by entropy and the relentless march toward disorder, we humans are so compelled to seek out patterns, connections, and narratives. This inherent drive to make sense of the world around us, to weave seemingly disparate threads into a coherent tapestry, speaks to a fundamental yearning for understanding, control, and perhaps even a sense of preordained purpose. For millennia, humanity has sought to understand these uncanny convergences, these moments when the fabric of reality seems to shimmer with hidden significance. In ancient cultures, coincidences were often interpreted as messages from the gods, divine interventions in the affairs of mortals, or portents of things to come. These beliefs permeated every aspect of life, from agricultural practices to political decisions, shaping the course of civilizations and imbuing everyday events with profound spiritual meaning. Even now, many people see luck and fate as powerful forces that shape their lives. It was Carl Jung, grappling with the depths of the human psyche, who introduced the concept of synchronicity, and a causal connecting principle that transcends the limitations of linear cause and effect. Jung saw synchronicity as evidence of a deeper, interconnected reality, a realm where the boundaries between the subjective and objective, the inner and outer, become blurred. He believed that these meaningful coincidences offer glimpses into the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of archetypal images and primordial patterns that underpin all human experience. Jung writes of the archetypes of the collective unconscious as the greatest prize, because it gives one an immediate, and so to speak, biological connection with the totality of things. However, existing explanations, including Jung's theory, fall short of fully accounting for the subjective experience of meaningful coincidences. While synchronicity provides a compelling framework for understanding a causal connections, it does not fully address the psychological factors that contribute to the feeling of meaningfulness. Critics also point to the lack of empirical support for synchronicity, questioning whether these events are truly more than just random occurrences amplified by cognitive biases. There is also the risk of confirmation bias, the tendency to selectively notice patterns that confirm pre-existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. Attributing too much significance to random events can negatively impact one's psychological well-being. So, what specific psychological factors, beyond synchronicity, contribute to the feeling of meaningfulness in coincidences? And how can we critically evaluate these events to avoid misinterpretations and cognitive traps? How can we distinguish between genuine insights and cognitive biases and harness the potential of meaningful coincidences for self-discovery and personal growth, without falling prey to superstition or delusion? In the coming exploration, we will explore the roles of pattern recognition, cognitive biases such as confirmation bias and attentional bias, and emotional salience in shaping the perception of meaningful coincidences. We'll also delve into alternative perspectives beyond Jung, such as complexity science, chaos theory, and information theory, to gain a more nuanced understanding of interconnectedness. By understanding these psychological principles, you'll develop critical thinking skills to evaluate coincidences objectively, unlock personal insights and creative inspiration, and cultivate a sense of awe and wonder without falling prey to superstition or delusion. Let's begin by tracing the origins of our understanding of coincidences, from ancient beliefs to modern psychological theories. We are pattern-seeking animals, constantly searching for meaning and order in a world that often seems chaotic and random. But what if this innate drive to connect the dots can sometimes lead us astray, causing us to see patterns where none exist and to overestimate the significance of chance events? This inherent human tendency to find connections, even in the absence of any real relationship, has deep roots in our evolutionary history. Our brains are wired to detect patterns because, for our ancestors, this ability was crucial for survival. Identifying the tracks of a predator, predicting the changing seasons, or recognizing edible plants could mean the difference between life and death. This pattern recognition capability is not just about identifying threats. It's also about predicting outcomes and understanding the causal relationships that govern our environment. Indeed, the inherent human need for order and predictability is a powerful force, shaping our perceptions, beliefs, and behaviors. But this remarkable ability to find patterns also has a dark side. Our brains are so eager to find connections that we often perceive them even when they're not really there. This tendency is known as apophenia, the experience of seeing meaningful connections between unrelated things. Pattern recognition, therefore, is a cognitive process of identifying regularities and relationships in sensory information or data, but it can be both adaptive and maladaptive, leading to genuine insights or to false beliefs. Apophenia can manifest in many ways, from seeing shapes in clouds to believing in conspiracy theories. While sometimes harmless, it can lead to misinterpretations and cognitive biases that affect our ability to evaluate coincidences objectively. Apophenia often involves attributing meaning to random noise, essentially turning chaos into a signal, however misleading. Cognitive biases, systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment, further complicate our perception of coincidences. These biases, often unconscious, can significantly distort our ability to assess the true probability and significance of events. Two of the most relevant biases in the context of coincidence interpretation are confirmation bias and attentional bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to seek out information that confirms existing beliefs and ignore contradictory evidence. Attentional bias, on the other hand, is the tendency for our perception to be affected by our recurring thoughts at the time, predisposing us to notice things related to our current concerns. These biases aren't necessarily flaws in our thinking. They're often shortcuts that allow us to make quick decisions in a complex world. However, when it comes to evaluating coincidences, they can lead to serious distortions in our perception. For example, consider someone who believes strongly in astrology. When an astrological prediction seems to come true, they are likely to remember and emphasize that instance, reinforcing their belief. However, when a prediction fails, they may dismiss it as an anomaly or simply forget about it. This is a classic example of confirmation bias at work, selectively filtering information to support a pre-existing belief. Similarly, a person looking to buy a specific car model might suddenly notice that model everywhere on the road, reinforcing their desire and creating the illusion that the car is more popular than it actually is. The availability heuristic, where we overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled, further exacerbates this effect. Attentional bias can also play a significant role in shaping our perception of coincidences. Imagine a person who is constantly worried about their health, constantly fearing cancer. They might be more likely to interpret any minor symptom, such as a headache or a skin rash, as a sign of a serious illness, overestimating the likelihood that it is related to cancer and triggering health anxiety. Or consider a person who has just ended a romantic relationship. They might suddenly become hyper-aware of couples holding hands or sharing intimate moments in public, leading them to believe that everyone around them is in a happy relationship while they are alone. This heightened awareness, driven by their emotional state, can distort their perception of reality. These biases can lead to overestimating the significance of coincidences and creating false narratives. By selectively noticing and interpreting information that confirms our beliefs and concerns, we can construct elaborate stories that support our pre-existing worldviews, even if those stories are based on flawed reasoning or incomplete data. It is, therefore, crucial to consider alternative explanations and statistical probabilities when evaluating coincidences. The laws of probability dictate that some coincidences are bound to occur simply by chance, and attributing deep meaning to every chance event can lead to cognitive traps and distorted perceptions. Maintaining a healthy dose of skepticism and employing critical evaluation skills are essential for navigating the world of coincidences without falling prey to these biases. So, while our brains are naturally wired to seek patterns and make connections, this tendency can also lead us astray. We must be aware of the potential for cognitive biases to distort our perception of reality, especially when it comes to interpreting coincidences. Seeking patterns is natural, but it can lead to misinterpretations and cognitive traps. But how do emotions amplify the perceived significance of coincidences, and what other perspectives beyond psychology can shed light on these experiences? What role do our deepest held beliefs play in shaping the meaning we find in these uncanny convergences? And how might alternative frameworks, such as chaos theory or complexity science, offer a more nuanced understanding of interconnectedness? We will now explore the emotional landscape of coincidence and venture beyond the realm of traditional psychology, as we seek a more holistic understanding of these enigmatic phenomena. Having explored the role of pattern recognition and cognitive biases in shaping our perception of coincidences, we now turn to another powerful influence: our emotions. While our brains are wired to seek patterns, and our cognitive biases can distort our interpretation of events, it is often the intensity of our emotions that truly amplifies the perceived significance of coincidences. But how do our emotions become intertwined with the significance we ascribe to coincidences? And what happens when these emotions overwhelm our rational faculties? Strong emotions, whether joy, fear, grief, or excitement, can heighten our awareness and create a sense of personal relevance, transforming ordinary events into seemingly meaningful omens. When we are in a heightened emotional state, our senses become more attuned to the world around us, and we are more likely to notice and remember events that resonate with our feelings. This heightened awareness is not merely a subjective experience. It is rooted in the neurobiology of emotion. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure in the brain, plays a crucial role in processing emotions and consolidating memories. When we experience a strong emotion, the amygdala becomes highly active, which in turn enhances the encoding of that experience into long-term memory. It is, therefore, no surprise that emotionally charged events are often remembered more vividly and are more likely to be perceived as significant. Consider, for example, how the death of a loved one may lead to the perception of signs or meaningful coincidences related to them. A song that was special to them playing on the radio, seeing their favorite animal appear unexpectedly, or even dreaming of them, all of these events can feel like messages from beyond, providing comfort and reassurance in a time of grief. But are these truly signs, or are they simply the result of our heightened emotional state and our desire to find meaning in loss? The concept of emotional salience further illuminates this phenomenon. Emotional salience refers to the degree to which something is noticeable or important to an individual based on their emotional state. When something is emotionally salient, it grabs our attention and influences our interpretation of events. This can lead to a selective attention and biased interpretation of events, where we focus on information that confirms our emotional state and ignore information that contradicts it. It is essential to differentiate between objective probability and subjective significance. A low probability event may feel highly significant if it resonates with a person's emotional state, leading them to overestimate its importance and attribute deeper meaning to it. For instance, a person experiencing anxiety might interpret neutral events, such as a delayed phone call or a cancelled meeting, as signs of impending danger, reinforcing their anxious thoughts and creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. What might someone conclude if every cancelled meeting is seen as a sign of impending professional doom? However, there is a dark side to meaningful coincidences, a potential for over-interpretation and misconstrued connections when driven by strong emotions. This can lead to paranoia, magical thinking, and distorted perceptions of reality, particularly when emotions are running high. We must be wary of illusory correlation, the perception of a relationship between two variables when no such relationship exists, especially when strong emotions are involved. Illusory correlations often arise when we are looking for patterns to confirm our existing beliefs or fears, causing us to see connections where none truly exist. An individual placing excessive emphasis on interpreting dreams and synchronicity, for example, might withdraw from social interaction and neglect practical responsibilities, becoming isolated in their own world of symbolic interpretations. How can we guard against such distortions, and what happens when our search for meaning leads us down a path of delusion? Consider the case of a person misinterpreting a series of minor setbacks as evidence of a curse or malevolent force. Perhaps they experience a flat tire, a missed promotion, and a falling out with a friend, all within a short period. If they are prone to magical thinking or are experiencing a period of intense stress, they might interpret these events as evidence that they are being targeted by some unseen force. This interpretation can lead to paranoia, anxiety, and a sense of helplessness, further distorting their perception of reality. Or imagine someone with a history of trauma seeing coincidences as signs that they are being targeted or followed. A chance encounter with someone who resembles their abuser, a car that looks like the one they associate with the traumatic event, or even a particular song playing on the radio can trigger intense fear and anxiety, leading them to believe that they are being stalked or that the trauma is about to be repeated. So, emotions can act as a double-edged sword, amplifying the perceived significance of coincidences while also distorting our ability to interpret them objectively. It is crucial to balance emotional awareness with critical thinking and objective evaluation, considering alternative explanations and statistical probabilities before jumping to conclusions. But what other perspectives, such as complexity science or information theory, can shed light on the nature of coincidences, and what are the practical implications of understanding these events in our lives? As we move forward, we will explore the limitations of Jung's synchronicity concept and consider the potential for coincidences to be both meaningful and misleading, developing a balanced perspective that allows us to use these experiences as catalysts for personal growth without sacrificing critical thinking. Having explored the potential for emotions to amplify or distort the perceived significance of coincidences, we must now consider another fundamental aspect of human experience: our personal beliefs. While pattern recognition, cognitive biases, and emotional salience all play a role in shaping our interpretation of these events, it is often our pre-existing beliefs and worldviews that ultimately determine the meaning we attribute to them. But can synchronicity alone account for the diverse range of interpretations people assign to coincidences, or do our personal beliefs truly dictate the meaning we find? Consider the concept of a belief system as a complex framework of interconnected beliefs, values, and assumptions that shape our perception of reality. These systems are not formed in a vacuum. Rather, they are the product of our personal experiences, cultural influences, and social interactions. A religious belief system, for example, might include the belief in a higher power, the existence of an afterlife, and the importance of following certain moral codes. A scientific belief system, on the other hand, might emphasize empirical evidence, rational analysis, and the laws of nature. Similarly, philosophical belief systems might center around concepts such as existentialism, determinism, or free will. These beliefs act as a filter through which we interpret events, including coincidences, and this filter can profoundly influence what we notice, how we interpret it, and the emotional significance we assign to it. It is through our belief systems that we actively shape the meaning we attribute to coincidences. Take, for instance, the experience of finding a feather on one's path. A person with strong religious beliefs might interpret this as a sign from an angel or a departed loved one, a message of comfort and reassurance. Conversely, an atheist might simply see it as a feather, a random occurrence with no particular significance. The objective event is the same, a feather appearing in a seemingly unexpected place, but the interpretation differs drastically depending on the individual's pre-existing beliefs. Moreover, the potential for confirmation bias further reinforces these interpretations. The religious person might selectively focus on other events that confirm their belief in divine intervention, while the atheist might dismiss any seemingly meaningful connections as mere chance. To further illustrate how different belief systems shape the interpretation of coincidences, consider the symbolism of a black cat crossing one's path. In many Western cultures, this is considered a sign of bad luck, a superstition rooted in historical associations with witchcraft and the occult. However, in some other cultures, such as parts of the United Kingdom and Japan, a black cat crossing one's path is actually considered good luck. Similarly, dreaming of a snake can have vastly different interpretations depending on one's belief system. A Jungian analyst might see it as a symbol of transformation and the unconscious, while someone from a culture with strong negative associations with snakes might see it as a sign of betrayal or danger. These varying interpretations highlight the subjective nature of meaning-making and the power of belief systems in shaping our perception of reality. The impact of New Age beliefs on coincidence interpretation is particularly noteworthy. The pervasive belief that everything happens for a reason can lead to attributing cosmic significance to even the most minor events, creating a sense of interconnectedness and divine purpose where none may exist. Furthermore, the concept of manifestation, the belief that one can attract desired outcomes through positive thinking and intention, can cause people to see coincidences as evidence that their desires are being fulfilled. For instance, someone who is actively trying to manifest a new job might interpret a chance encounter with a recruiter as a sign that their manifestation is working, even if the encounter is purely coincidental. However, such beliefs can also create unrealistic expectations and distorted perceptions of reality, leading to disappointment and frustration when desires are not immediately fulfilled. Conversely, skepticism and a scientific worldview can minimize the perceived significance of coincidences. A scientist might attribute a seemingly improbable event to statistical probability rather than fate or synchronicity, emphasizing the role of randomness and chance in the universe. Consider, for example, the phenomenon of the birthday paradox, which demonstrates that in a group of just 23 people, there is a greater than 50% chance that two people will share the same birthday. While this might seem like an improbable coincidence, it is simply a result of statistical probability. Understanding randomness and statistical outliers can help to avoid over-interpreting coincidences and attributing deeper meaning to events that are simply the result of chance. In essence, personal beliefs act as a powerful filter in shaping the perception of meaningful coincidences, highlighting the remarkable diversity of interpretations that can arise from the same objective event. We have seen how objective events, cognitive biases, emotional salience, and personal beliefs all interplay to shape our understanding of these experiences. It's crucial to remember that coincidences are not inherently meaningful. They are assigned meaning by the individual based on their unique psychological makeup and worldview. But what happens when people place too much emphasis on the perceived meaning of coincidences, and how can this negatively impact their lives? What risks do we run when we surrender to magical thinking or neglect practical responsibilities in favor of chasing signs and omens? As we move forward, we will explore the potential dangers of over-interpreting coincidences and the importance of maintaining a balanced perspective, developing the critical thinking skills necessary to navigate the complex world of meaning-making. By understanding the subjective nature of these experiences, we can harness their potential for self-discovery and growth while avoiding the pitfalls of delusion and misinterpretation. But what happens when the search for meaning in coincidences becomes an obsession, a lens through which every event is scrutinized for hidden significance? It's easy to fall into the trap of seeing patterns where none exist, of interpreting random occurrences as deliberate signs guiding us toward a specific path. Consider the individual who interprets targeted social media advertisements as a clear indication that they should pursue a particular career. This person might perceive these ads generated by algorithms based on browsing history and demographic data as a sign from the universe, a validation of their hidden desires and untapped potential. This skewed decision-making, based on perceived signs rather than tangible realities, can lead to neglecting more grounded considerations. The aspiring career changer might forego practical research into job market demands, ignore the need for relevant skills and training, and dismiss the advice of experienced professionals, all in favor of following what they believe to be a divinely ordained path. The danger lies in prioritizing abstract meanings over concrete realities, building castles in the sky while neglecting the solid foundation required for genuine success. This tendency to overemphasize perceived significance can be framed as a cognitive vulnerability, a susceptibility to seeing patterns and connections that are not objectively present. It is a cognitive vulnerability that preys upon our innate desire for meaning and purpose, twisting it into a source of potential delusion. This brings us to the concept of magical thinking, an irrational belief that one's thoughts, words, or actions can directly influence events, defying the established laws of causality. This is not the harmless act of carrying a lucky charm or knocking on wood. It's a deeper conviction that transcends mere superstition. Magical thinking stems from the fundamental human desire for control in a world filled with uncertainty. In the face of chaos and unpredictability, the belief that we can exert influence over events through ritualistic actions or focused intention provides a sense of comfort and empowerment. However, an excessive focus on coincidences can inadvertently reinforce magical thinking, creating a false sense of agency and distorting our understanding of cause and effect. Someone deeply invested in magical thinking might interpret a string of coincidences as evidence that they possess special powers or are under the protection of benevolent forces. A minor inconvenience, such as missing a bus, might be seen as a fortunate escape from a potential accident, a sign that the universe is watching over them. A chance encounter with a long-lost friend might be interpreted as a manifestation of their desire for deeper connection, a testament to the power of their positive intentions. While such interpretations can be comforting and uplifting, they can also lead to a distorted perception of reality, blurring the lines between wishful thinking and objective truth. Differentiating between harmless superstition and maladaptive magical thinking is crucial. While the former can provide a sense of comfort and tradition, the latter can lead to detachment from reality and impaired decision-making. The allure of magical thinking lies in its promise of control, but the danger lies in its potential to create a self-deceptive reality. But what are the real-world consequences of this over-interpretation? How can this tendency to see meaning in everything negatively impact people's lives? The effects can manifest in various ways, leading to isolation, paranoia, and neglect. Consider the individual who becomes so engrossed in interpreting their dreams and searching for synchronistic connections that they withdraw from social interaction. This person might spend countless hours poring over dream dictionaries, analyzing their daily experiences for hidden meanings, and constructing elaborate narratives that connect seemingly unrelated events. Their friends and family, unable to relate to this obsession, may gradually drift away, leaving the individual feeling isolated and misunderstood. The world outside, with its mundane routines and everyday concerns, fades into the background as the individual becomes increasingly consumed by their inner world of symbolic interpretation. Then there is the person who misinterprets random events as evidence of a grand conspiracy, seeing sinister motives behind every shadow. A delayed email, a cancelled meeting, or a chance encounter with a stranger might all be woven into a complex narrative of hidden agendas and malevolent forces. This paranoia can lead to heightened anxiety, distrust of others, and a sense of constant threat. The world becomes a dangerous place, filled with hidden enemies and unseen forces working against them. Sleep disturbances, hypervigilance, and social withdrawal become common as the individual struggles to maintain a sense of control in a world perceived as hostile and unpredictable. In both of these scenarios, attentional bias and confirmation bias work in tandem to exacerbate the negative effects. The isolated dreamer selectively focuses on information that confirms their belief in the importance of symbolic interpretation, while the paranoid individual fixates on evidence that supports their suspicions of conspiracy. Neglect can also result from excessive interpretation. An individual, convinced that divine intervention will solve their problems, might ignore practical responsibilities and opportunities for self-improvement. A person struggling with financial difficulties might forego seeking employment, believing that a windfall of money will magically appear. Someone facing relationship problems might avoid honest communication, hoping that a romantic gesture will miraculously resolve the conflict. When the anticipated intervention never arrives, and the individual has failed to take proactive steps to improve their situation, the consequences can be devastating. The job remains elusive, the debt grows larger, and the relationship deteriorates further, all because of a misguided belief in the power of fate and the futility of personal effort. Research on the psychological effects of isolation, paranoia, and neglect consistently demonstrates the detrimental impact of these experiences on mental and physical health. Social isolation is linked to increased rates of depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. Paranoia can lead to chronic stress, sleep disturbances, and impaired social functioning. Neglect can result in feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and a diminished sense of self-worth. In essence, while deriving meaning from coincidences can be a source of insight and inspiration, excessive interpretation carries significant risks. Over-reliance on magical thinking can distort our perception of reality and create a false sense of control. The pursuit of hidden meanings can lead to isolation, paranoia, and neglect, ultimately diminishing our quality of life. It's clear that while coincidences can be personally meaningful, that meaning is subjective to the individual experiencing them. So, are there frameworks beyond subjective interpretation that can shed light on the nature and frequency of coincidences, helping us to avoid the pitfalls of excessive meaning-making? Could an understanding of complexity science, information theory, and statistical probability offer a more objective lens through which to view these events? By recognizing the signs of excessive interpretation in ourselves and others, can we develop coping mechanisms for managing the anxiety and uncertainty associated with coincidences, and ultimately cultivate a more grounded and realistic worldview? In bringing these interconnected ideas together, let us synthesize our understanding of meaningful coincidences, drawing upon the various perspectives we have explored. Throughout this exploration, we have seen that the perception of meaningful coincidences arises from an intricate interplay of psychological factors. These factors include the fundamental human drive for pattern recognition, the influence of cognitive biases such as confirmation bias and attentional bias, the significant role of emotional salience in highlighting certain events, and the deeply personal nature of our individual belief systems. It is the confluence of these elements, the individual's psychology, their unique experiences, and the events that transpire around them that ultimately shapes the meanings we derive. The goal, therefore, is neither to dismiss all coincidences as mere meaningless noise, nor to blindly accept them as divinely ordained messages. Instead, the path lies in engaging with these occurrences thoughtfully and critically, maintaining a balance between embracing the potential for meaning and remaining vigilant against cognitive traps and distorted perceptions. This demands a spirit of both openness and skepticism, a willingness to explore the possibilities while remaining grounded in self-awareness. Having explored the psychological and philosophical dimensions of meaningful coincidences, it is now fitting to revisit the paradox with which we began. How can events be simultaneously random occurrences and potential sources of profound meaning? Our journey has revealed that the answer lies not in a simplistic either-or proposition, but in the complex interplay between objective reality and subjective interpretation. We have traversed the landscape where genuine insight blurs with cognitive bias, where meaningful connection intertwines with chance alignment. Hopefully, your understanding of meaningful coincidences has deepened, evolving from a potentially simplistic view of coincidences as mere fate or chance to a more nuanced appreciation of the psychological processes involved. You are now better equipped not as passive observers, but as active interpreters, more aware of your own biases and beliefs, and better prepared to navigate the labyrinthine world of meaningful coincidences. At the heart of this exploration lies the inherent human desire for meaning and purpose, a yearning to find coherence and connection in a world often perceived as chaotic and random. The search for patterns, the impulse to discern order from disorder, is not merely a cognitive quirk, but a fundamental aspect of human cognition, a drive that has shaped our understanding of the world and our place within it. This search for meaning is not simply about finding answers. It is a source of creativity, inspiration, and personal growth. It fuels our curiosity, drives our exploration, and inspires us to seek deeper understanding. However, it is essential to balance this quest for meaning with critical thinking and self-awareness, acknowledging the potential for cognitive biases, emotional reactivity, and personal beliefs to distort our perceptions. Therefore, the true meaning of a coincidence lies not in the event itself, but in the self-awareness it inspires. The experience of a meaningful coincidence can serve as a catalyst for introspection, prompting us to examine our beliefs, challenge our assumptions, and deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The responsibility for finding meaning rests not with the outer world, not with a guru or an ideology, but within each individual. It is up to each of us to take ownership of our interpretations, to cultivate a discerning eye, and to approach these experiences with both wonder and intellectual rigor. As you move forward, consider the coincidences you experience in your own life. Rather than passively accepting interpretations or dismissing them entirely, engage with them critically, thoughtfully considering the various psychological factors that may be shaping your perceptions. Examine your own beliefs, biases, and emotional reactions when encountering these events. By cultivating a more balanced perspective on coincidences, you can foster personal growth, enhance your creativity, and deepen your understanding of yourselves and the world around you. Embrace the opportunity to balance awe and wonder with grounded objectivity, to find meaning without succumbing to delusion, and to cultivate a sense of connection without sacrificing your critical faculties. Thank you for joining this exploration.